Let's talk to political and financial commentator Patrick Young. Mr. Young, thanks very much for speaking to us this afternoon. Let's start with a recent development, though, because it's being reported that the US would like the EU to grant Ukrainians visa-free travel as a measure of integration. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the EU would ever agree to it?
This is a fascinating idea, and it demonstrates a couple of things. First of all, how completely and utterly out of touch with the politics of the European Union that the United States of America is. But then on the other hand, given that President Obama has invariably been looking towards Asia, we probably shouldn't be surprised. Second of all, I think, is the pure practicality. There is an incredibly powerful, emotive debate going on within Europe at the moment, particularly in the UK, for instance, over the issue of migrant labour within the EU. On January the 1st next year, there is a possibility that many Bulgarians and Romanians may start to move across to the West because they'll be allowed to go and work. I think that within the European Union there would be an outrage, an outcry indeed, if suddenly the gates were to be opened, because obviously millions of Ukrainians want a better life and they want a better economy, but to simply let them loose on the Western European economy when it's already ravaged by inflation, by unemployment, by all sorts of problems, is going to be a huge political no-no.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the EU politicians for a moment, because we have seen them in Kiev as well, taking part in the demonstrations. People are asking, why are they taking part in these demonstrations? Why aren't they actually talking with the government to see if they can strike some sort of deal?
It has to be said that the extraterritorial aggressive ambition of Western states, whether it's the European Union or the USA, is absolutely crazy. Also, though, I would bear in mind another thing, which is the simple electoral cycle. MEPs, members of the European Parliament, are terrified that they're about to be outflanked by anti-European forces in elections in 4 or 5 months' time. Therefore, they're doing anything to try and get a tinge of popularity. And of course, the way they do that in the socialist European superstate of the EU is try and be seen around liberal demonstrators at all time, because it kind of inflates their okay credentials of looking like hippie liberals. The truth is, they have no coherent concept of why or what they could do with Ukraine. And in fact, the worst thing that could happen in many senses is that Ukraine now signs this economic deal, because if it did allow free movement of labour, it would be chaos for Europe. As usual, the European Union, a superstate of humbug and hypocrisy.
But, Patrick, there must be some benefit, surely, because this is something that has been considered by Ukraine for some time now. OK, it's decided to go the other way, but surely there must be some benefits.
Absolutely. Let's look at two things. First of all, do the people protesting in Kiev today have a reasonable understanding and a realistic idea of what they want in their future? Well, in one sense they do. They want jobs, they want employment, they want a fair, reasonable, organised state. The difficulty is, will they get that delivered to them by simply becoming supplicant to the European Union? And the problem with that is no. Because if we look to the east, for example, of Ukraine, we arrive at that famous city of Donetsk, founded by a Welshman in 1869, a hub of industry. Now, it happens to be the political capital also for Mr. Yanukovych, the president. But more importantly, look at what goes on in places like Donetsk. There they build fridges, they build all sorts of mechanical equipment. What do they do with it? They export it, and they export it to places like Russia, Turkey, and actually outside of the EU entirely. The difficulty is, with a free association agreement, with this free trade pact that was being proposed, suddenly those exports would be entirely uncompetitive in terms of going to Russia or other countries, and indeed they wouldn't be competitive with cheaper Western imports. In that respect, the EU has tried to make an economic land grab to essentially have a leveraged buyout of the Ukrainian economy, and in the long term that is not what anybody really should be looking for.
Now, interestingly, this debate has gone beyond the EU borders, because America has got involved. We've heard from the US Secretary of State Victoria Nuland just this week saying that an EU association would bring Ukraine back to economic health. Why do we have this involvement from America, do you think?
Well, of course, when you've got a situation where, you know, the mayor of Toronto in Canada has been found smoking crack cocaine and he's twice as popular in opinion polls locally as the US president is nationally in the United States of America, you have, of course, the fundamental reason why, again, in the political cycle, the Obama government is discredited. They cannot implement health care. They have managed to have a string of failures in foreign policy. Now what they've gone to is they've gone back to the old neocon model of regime change 1.0. And that's absolutely disgraceful because, of course, we had a great hope. The hopey-changey thing of Obama has now become a myth. And ultimately, the terrible tragedy is the people of Ukraine, the innocent, reasonable people who want to work for a better life, have become pawns in an extraterritorial, supranational game being led by the European Union and the USA in order to try and make it look to their domestic constituencies as if they're capable of doing something in foreign policy.
All right, we do have to leave it there, but thank you very much. That's political and financial commentator Patrick Young. Thank you.